cheese in Paris?
What do they call it?
Royale with cheese.
Royale with cheese.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars and welcome to another classic film review. Today I'm taking a look at the 1994 crime drama Pulp Fiction. The film is of course written and directed by Quentin Tarantino and it stars John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, Uma Thurman, Bruce Willis, Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer and Ving Rhames. Right, okay, the film was the second directorial film of Quentin Tarantino after the huge success of Reservoir Dogs. He came back to the big screen with Pulp Fiction and of course blew everybody away. And the film focuses on a number of characters. You've got Vincent Vega, played by John Travolta. You've got Jules, played by Samuel L. Jackson. You've got Mia Wallace, played by Uma Thurman. And Butch, played by Bruce Willis. And they are all kind of interlinked. There's like a number of segments. So you've got like, you've got the story of John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson's character going out and collecting a case that their boss, played by Ving Rhames, is after. Nobody knows what's in this box. They go on like a misadventure. They accidentally kill someone in a car. They've got to go and get it clean, get off the streets and get this suitcase back to Ving Rhames. You've got another story where John Travolta's character Vincent Vega takes Ving Rhames' character Uma Thurman out for a meal to keep her entertained. That goes terribly wrong. She has an overdose. And then you've got the boxing segment with Bruce Willis's character Butch, who throws a fight that he's supposed to lose in order to make himself a big pile of money, and then basically ends up trying to survive the night stroke day so that he can get out with alive and in one piece. Right, what are my thoughts on Pulp Fiction? Well, this is probably the most unique. I don't know, would you call this film an anthology film? I suppose it is in a lot of ways. The people that I've met who don't like this film, which I think is incredible that actually someone's actually watched this film and doesn't really like it, is they're complaining, it's too hard to follow, it's all over the place, you know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense, the way it's been. And I do understand, some people want to watch a film and just be able to follow it from beginning to end, have everything fully explained, and then for a nice, clean, tidy finish, and then they can turn it off and be very happy with what they've seen. Pulp Fiction is one of those films that doesn't do that. It challenges you, it stirs your intellect. I mean, for me, it's a stunning film. I've always thought it was a stunning film. I've rewatched it to prepare for this review, and it's a number of years since I've seen it. And I'll be honest, my thought patterns with Quentin Tarantino were his three finest films, in my opinion, was Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained, and The Hateful Eight. I just thought that trilogy of movies, one after each other, were flawless. I just think they're magnificent. And then I'd obviously forgotten how this film made me feel, because after rewatching it for this review, it felt just as fresh and just as relevant as the first time I ever watched it. It did not feel like it's aged a day, and it blows my mind that this film came out in 1994. The dialogue is incredible. Now, I'm one of these that I think sometimes Quentin Tarantino, you could argue, has overindulged himself in movies with some of the dialogue scenes. I think he almost feels like, it's expected, to have these cool, dialogue scenes in my movies. And I think films like Death Proof and even Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are good examples of him maybe overindulging. And this film, I think it's probably one of the finest scripts ever. And that's a bold statement, I know. But there's not a line wasted. It feels ultra cool. And it just absolutely blows you away when you watch it, this film. Everybody is beyond their best performance, really. You could argue, personally, I think personally Bruce Willis's finest performance is in Unbreakable, but I think this is probably a close second. And at the time when Bruce Willis was cast in this film, there was very few bigger stars in Hollywood. I mean, he'd had a couple of flops at the time, I think, but he was still a huge draw, huge name. And when Quentin Tarantino met him, I think this story's on YouTube, and Quentin Tarantino telling the story. He was at a party. I think it was Harvey Keitel's party invited by Harvey Keitel, and Bruce Willis was there, and Bruce Willis, was introduced to him, and he said he loved Reservoir Dogs and he'd really like to be in Pulp Fiction. He'd got his hands on a script and read it, and lo and behold, he wanted the part of Vincent, John Travolta's part, the part that everybody else, it seemed, in Hollywood wanted. Now that part originally been written for Michael Madsen, but he couldn't do it because he'd signed up to Wyatt Earp. So therefore, it was given to John Travolta, who at the time was not a star by any stretch of the imagination. John Travolta's biggest hits over the last 10 years or so had been the Look Who's Talking films, and those are exactly what you would call classics. So he was not a big name at the time, John Travolta. His star had fallen significantly. So he had to really fight to get John Travolta in this film. So he knew he had to throw the studio a bone, if you like. He knew he had to maybe get a star in this film. So he had to. I mean, this is Quentin Tarantino's second film, and yes, he's the toast of Hollywood at the time. He's the new kid on the block. He was, the cool guy. But he still, he couldn't have everything his own way. So he knew that he had to go back to Bruce Willis and basically say, no, I can't give you the part of Vincent Vega. You're not right for that part. Which wouldn't have been an easy thing for certainly Quentin Tarantino to do at the time. So he did that. He went back to Bruce Willis and says, I can't offer you that part. However, there's another part in the film that I do actually think you'd be brilliant for, and it's like the second lead. And that's Butch. So Bruce Willis went away, thought about it, reread the script from the perspective of playing Butch, and then came back and says, yeah, okay, I'll do it. What a great decision by Bruce Willis. Because he's excellent in this film. Absolutely excellent. Especially when you consider that he's a boxer that you don't see ever box. It's just, I love the fact that what Quentin Tarantino has done with this film. He has taken like familiar crime stories or tales that we've kind of seen in films before. The boxer who's meant to throw a fight. The two mob enforcers collecting for their boss. An employee taking out their boss's wife for a meal. And he knows he can't touch her. These sort of stories. You've seen these sort of things in movies before. So Quentin Tarantino starts off with that familiar thread, and then completely turns the stories on their heads. And there is nobody would figure out where those stories were going next. The Butch one. Who would have thought where that story was heading? Bumping into Ving Rhames' Marcellus, and then the whole fight in the pawn shop, and then what happens next with the gimp and everything like that. I mean, there's nobody could have predicted that was going to go that way. And then the Vincent taking out the Uma Thurman character for meal, the incredible dialogue involved there, the scene with them dancing on the stage, and then her, you're kind of thinking, oh, right, yeah, great stuff, great. It's great to see all this. This is really, really nicely done. The set that they go to, for that diner is incredible. I think one of the finest sets I've ever seen. And then she takes an overdose. Who would have predicted that happening, and the whole next part of that story? And then the um, Jules and Vincent collecting for their boss, collecting that suitcase, and then the whole shooting in the back of the car, the fact they've got to clean it all out. Harvey Keitel's the wolf turns up to try and save them. The Bonnie situation. I mean, his imagination is wild, and then the whole diner thing, and how all these stories tie together. I mean, it's just genius stuff, really. You cannot fault this film. It's made me rethink what I think is Quentin Tarantino's finest film. And as much as I adore those three films I mentioned, that trilogy of films, I think it's Quentin Tarantino, those three films, Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained, and The Hateful Eight, his most arguably creative and commercial at the same time. Because all of them are like, especially Django Unchained and The Hateful Eight, are very, very commercial films with that real Tarantino feel about them. It's him. He's absolutely honed his craft by that point, but he makes those three films. Pulp Fiction still feels raw. It still feels really edgy. It feels like it's pushing the boundaries, and you can tell it's a filmmaker that at the start of their career still. But it's stunning. It's a stunning piece of cinema, and I implore anybody who's never seen Pulp Fiction to watch it, because you will have your mind blown. There are people out there that are not keen on Quentin Tarantino. Now, I won't go as far as to say I'm his biggest fan. I think he's made films that, for me, are flawed. I didn't like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, not particularly. I wasn't a huge fan of Death Proof. I'm not a huge fan of Jackie Brown. I'm not even a huge fan of Reservoir Dogs. I think overrated you could put with some of his work, but it's very, very clear as well that some of his movies are masterpieces. And Quentin Tarantino is certainly an incredible writer and director. So yeah, I mean, there's still debates going about what is actually in that suitcase that Vincent Vega and Jules are collecting. There's loads of theories gone round that it's gold, because when they open it up, obviously you get that yellow glow on their faces. Is it gold? There was even a rumour that it could be Elvis Presley's gold suit. But the most persistent theory, I suppose, is that it's Marcellus's soul, because you see at the back of his head he's got this plaster on, and that's, if you believe in that sort of thing, that's how they say the soul is removed from the body, from the back of the neck. So that's the most persistent rumour, is that it is his soul. But it's open for you to debate. But there is no debate, I don't think, that this film is not a stone cold classic. And I thoroughly enjoyed revisiting it. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments what your favourite Quentin Tarantino film is, and what your thoughts are on Quentin Tarantino giving us potentially one more film and then walking away from directing. Personally, I'm not sure we'll see that happen, but who knows? He seems to be sticking to his guns on that one. But either way, I'll see you soon on the channel for plenty more reviews and content.